Would you like some blood? Suit yourself. You don't look so well. It isn't my manner. I'm sorry. To be a little blunt. The others say intrusive, but I don't know. I just prefer not to beat around the bush and just say what I mean to say, you know? Right. You understand. Anyway, what is up with this? You don't seem right. Have you not been sleeping? Been stressed out lately. Oh, this Tria made it for me. Isn't it lovely? Yes. Back to you. Is there something that I could offer? Something that could comfort you? Do you need someone to listen to you while you talk about it? Or would just sharing company help? Or would you like to be distracted? Perhaps we could do another. I'm not exactly sure what kinds of activities you enjoy. But I'm sure we could think of something. I get bored easily. You know this. Me? Well, it depends. I don't get distressed very often. But when I do, it depends on what kind of distress I'm feeling. For example, if for whatever reason someone is ignoring me, I don't like that. It can make me upset and feel overwhelmed or disrespected. I have been told that it is not good manners to necessarily go up to the person who is ignoring me and demand that they change their behavior. Right. I forget that one. However, if I am in a space where I'm not feeling confrontational, Sometimes it helps to ask someone that I trust, right, to talk about it with me, you know? Why am I feeling this way? Does this person, right, does it require a revenge plot? Do I want to spend that kind of energy? Thinking about it objectively can be helpful. Sometimes. For me at least. Or if you are feeling hurt or tired or disrespected or misunderstood by someone or by the world, right? Sometimes making art about it or finding a way to distract yourself, doing something with your hands. You know, Sio's always needing help with chores and whatnot around the house. I'm personally not very inclined to do them as much as I adore her and know that I owe them my life. Chores are just not necessarily my thing. However, I can offer different kinds of services instead. Garnering information, manipulating people that I'm actually not sure if I'm not supposed to be talking about that with you. Never mind. There are gifts and talents that I personally possess that I can lean into when I'm feeling generous. Otherwise, there are acts of psychic, physical, mental, emotional labor that exist that you can do if you need to be distracted in that way. Sometimes just going outside helps. Yes. When I was small, I think I used to take out my frustration on dolls and toys that I had, which could also be seen as a form of artistic expression. Right. What else is there? Personally, my coping mechanisms, I don't have a very good list, I don't think. No, I don't consider it a fault. necessarily. I mostly see it as it's something that you kind of navigate on your own, depending on the situation and what feels best, right? Right. Yes. I'm sorry you aren't feeling well. Maybe talking about it first might help. You could omit things if they don't feel comfortable to share. And we can see how you're feeling as, time passes. Is it alright if I touch your face? There. I'm personally not very good at the comforting thing, as you know. But, I like to be there in the ways that I can and have capacity for. Right. I see. So you are, if I'm hearing you correctly, upset because someone who you admire is not returning your feelings, or I see, so they don't respond to you in well, it's more than it being a timely manner, right? I see. What I'm hearing is that you don't feel that you're being prioritized. Am I right? Yes, that is not fun. It's definitely not a pleasant feeling. I have finished the entire bottle. That's all right. There's more in storage. Continue. Right. Consider, or have you thought to tell them how you feel about it? I know probably my approach would not be the same as yours, but given your personality, I feel that you would hold back, correct me if I'm wrong, more than you should. And right, I do think that communication and some forms of confrontation, maybe not exactly the ones that I personally subscribe to and execute, are necessarily absolutely everyone's go-to or would necessarily be appropriate for every situation, right? That being said, I do think that communication or some forms of making your needs known are helpful and can be necessary in different circumstances. That being said, who is this person to you? This is a grave situation indeed. This is a person who holds your affections. Certainly is not ideal. Do you think that it's unrequited? So they show signs, but also struggle to be vulnerable. It does sound, and forgive me if I am jumping to conclusions, but it does sound like you are justifying a lot of their behavior, but that you have a tendency to in these kinds of situations. And certainly it can be true that different people have different communication styles, and some of those styles may be more distant. However, communication styles may differ and vary, right? But I do think that while certain people might have different communication styles and preferences, what you personally need from this dialogue also matters. Like, regardless of how they tend to talk to people or tend to respond or tend to communicate, right? The way that you personally need things communicated matters. Yes. It doesn't take away from how somebody else might communicate or tend to communicate, and that might be something that you personally need to remind yourself of sometimes. But if it feels like you are not being prioritized, if it feels like you're holding on to a lot of hurt, or you're having to read more than you're able to speak to them about things, right? I personally feel that what you need in terms of communication does need to be communicated. Right. If this person, whether or not they return your feelings, right, if they cannot at least have a conversation about this, right, what your needs are, what ways that they can try to, or ways that you can both figure out how to speak to or communicate with one another, perhaps, and this may sound harsh, but perhaps this is something to take into consideration or see as a bit of a red flag. I know it might, it's not fun, but sometimes in the ways that we have to approach these things, you do have to not necessarily take a tally, right? But notice or make sure you're not just excusing or brushing things off or being in denial or about the way that things are or the way that you're being treated, right? It matters. It really does. And I think there is a tendency for people in general to sacrifice or let go of things that they normally wouldn't tolerate, or even if they tolerate it from their friends or family members. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy or good for you. And I think that in the long run, sometimes, while it can be painful to come to these conclusions or come to this understanding that the things that you would do for someone might not be the same things that they would do for you, the same kinds of effort or levels of effort that you would go through are put forth might not be the same as what others would do for you, or specifically this person that we are speaking of might do for you. But in the long run, part of it is recognizing your own worth and what you deserve. And I personally feel that opportunities to exercise and recognize your worth and have and like maintain your own integrity about it is invaluable. I don't think that while your feelings for this person might be large, in the end, feelings do change. Sometimes they take some time to change, but you are the person, you know, despite all of the changes that you have gone through in life and the ways that you will continue to change, you know, vampire status notwithstanding, you know, you continue to be the person that spends the most time with yourself, right? And your relationship with yourself and your self-worth and who you are and what you will allow for yourself matters. I truly believe that it is of the utmost importance, regardless of what happens or doesn't happen. In fact, honestly, things might get better. I'm not promising it, of course. I am not this other person. I cannot tell you how the other person will react. You cannot control that. You can make yourself smaller and change things or word things in certain ways to maybe see if things will hurt less for them or you, or stay in this dynamic that you continue to exist in, that is clearly upsetting you. Or you can choose to advocate for yourself and see what happens from there. I feel that advocating for yourself and knowing where you're coming from and what you will take and what you won't take, that's huge, right? Maybe it's not what you wanted to hear. Maybe it's not necessarily comfortable to hear. And you know me, I'm not very good about saying things in the most, how you say, easy or sweet or comforting ways. But despite that, I think things are going fabulous for me. And I personally feel that despite all of the ways that you are holding things for this person, whether it is your feelings or their feelings, or trying to read the situation for what it is and trying to hold space for that potential, I feel that the ways that you need to show up for yourself are actually the most pressing in terms of the issue at hand. Am I right in thinking that? Yes, right. Well, I think you know what to do. I won't bother you too long. I'm sure you have a lot to process at this point. I think that is true. All right, I'll be off then. Ta-ta.